Hello, so what I've got here is another Millennium Falcon tin, which I'm going to be making into a guitar. I've been commissioned to do this, but he's otherwise let me do what I would have done anyway with it. And because this tin is a bit larger than normal, the plan has been to put a full-size guitar neck on. This is taken from an Encore, I think. I'm not sure what it was. I just got it as a neck. But it's made of mahogany, which is pretty cool, or a mahogany type wood. But I'm going to completely strip this and refinish it. And do a fret level and everything, so that's will end up being a nicer neck, and that will go on there like that. Then I've got a top loading sort of strap type bridge. This is new, so there's that. So then that's going to go on here somewhere, and then this will have one single coil pickup in the middle here somewhere, and then a volume and tone. So this is sort of roughly what it's going to end up like. The front of the headstock does have some chips in the veneer, which is a bit of a shame. So I'll fill those in, and then I'm going to respray the front of the headstock silver to match the rest of the tin. The headstock itself has got a kind of tapered shape here, which I think is sort of reminiscent of the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, you know, in a way, if you kind of squint a bit. Obviously the tin itself is hollow, so inside I'm going to use this piece of plywood to build a kind of center block, which the neck can be mounted onto and the bridge can be mounted onto. I think I'm going to do the neck first and get that sorted before moving on to adapting the tin. This is still sealed at the moment, so I'm going to keep the packaging on it for now. I think I need to stand up for this. So I've got this neck to a pretty decent place now. All the old finish is gone. It's sanded to about sort of 320-ish at the moment. Frets have been leveled and crowned. They're looking nice and shiny. I've cleaned the fretboard, but I haven't oiled it yet. I'll wait until it's all sort of nearing completion before I do that. So to fill in the gaps on this headstock, I'm going to use Milliput, because I find this is it's got better adhesion than a lot of wood fillers on big flat spaces like this, and it's denser, so it sounds a lot smoother than poly filler, for instance. So here's the tin. About time to take this off, I think. It's a little bit dented. That was that happened in the post, but it's not too bad, so I can push that out from the inside. There's a little bit of rust there, but that'll be cut off anyway from where the neck's going. Cool. Okay. Look at that. Okay, so what's inside here then? Well, we've got a pen, Millennium Falcon pen, notebook, premium A5 notebook. Let's have a look in here. Is it blank? Is it lined? Yeah, blank notebook. Is that a badge? Oh yeah, a little badge. Maybe I could put that on the headstock. Maybe a nice idea. And a big old key ring. That's quite an impractical key ring. Look at that. That's huge. You wouldn't want that in your pocket, would you? It's massive. Okay, well, fortunately, it's an insert, so I can take it all out and keep it safe. There's my tin. Right. So yeah, very easily to bend the lid back to being flat. I've been measuring the tin and the various pieces of wood. The neck is about 25mm thick at the edge, and typically that's about 9 or 10mm above the body on a strat, because it's a strat bridge, so it needs to be roughly the same proportions. So inside here, the neck needs to sit on a platform that's 17mm high off the floor of the tin, and then the bridge will be about there. That'll need a block that comes all the way up to the underside of the lid, so that'll need to be sort of about 32 high from the bottom of there. And what I've worked out is that one piece of this plywood plus a thickness of this thinner like sheet plywood, that's 16mm, so they can go in. Strip of this, strip of that. Then the neck can sit on there. But then the bridge though, I think given that this is 16 and I need 32, I can just double it all up. So I'll just sort of sandwich that all in there. That will then sit just below the lid when the lid is on. So then when you push down on this, there'll be something solid under it. And being that it's a bolt-on neck, you know, it should be fairly simple to put this bit together. So I've got my Spiderman bandsaw out. There's the milliput's dry. Goes really hard, so that'll sand up really nicely. We're going to use 320 sandpaper, and I'm going to use a block. That's not too bad, but it's slightly dipped in. It's better than it was, but if you were to spray that, you would see the little divots. Okay, so I've made a little bit more. Okay, so that's all packed in now above the level of the headstock. So I'm going to leave it there, let that dry. I am going to put better machine heads on here than were on it originally. These have come off this beautiful fake Gibson headstock that I found at a car boot sale. I've ascertained that that's the step I need to go up to on the drill. So I'm gonna go in gingerly from either side. There we go. So that milliput has survived quite nicely. And let's see if the machine head goes in. Oh, not with that on, it won't. Lovely job. And it hasn't damaged those. I'd rather damage this now than damage the paint after it's painted. I think that'll be fine once they're in. So now with the primer on here, you can see that those chips have completely disappeared. The milliput is perfectly level with the rest of the veneer. The headstock has suffered a bit of an accident. Unfortunately, an accident with the jigsaw. Wasn't being careful enough. It was an incredibly stupid mistake. I mean, it wasn't dangerous in the sense I knew I wasn't in danger, but I didn't consider that that was behind it. But, you know, it's exactly the same thing that was wrong with it before, so I'm going to fix it in the same way and then add some a couple more coats of primer. So yeah, there we go. So that is perfectly smooth, perfectly flush with the top. Other than being embarrassed about making a mistake and delaying myself, this is back on track. So these two bits now are going to be my centre block. Obviously this is plywood, so there's a couple of gaps, so I'll get rid of those. So this one, or one of them, will sit in the bottom of the tin, and then this one, the top one, will have a notch cut out for the heel, and then that will be glued on to the top, and this will go inside the guitar. I've locked Phoebe in the greenhouse so she doesn't make a nuisance while I'm doing this, and she's not very happy. If I line it up based on the geometry of the tin and then discover that the design of the ship doesn't perfectly line up with the geometry of the tin, you know, it's going to look wrong, because you're going to be looking at the spaceship, aren't you? You're not going to be looking at the outline of the tin. I mean, I think it is centered, but because I think it's centered, I'm going to use the spaceship. I'm going to base all my measurements off the picture rather than the tin itself. So let's draw a line there. So that's my center line. Obviously it's not in the middle of the tape, but when you look at the design through the tape, you can see that it is exactly in the middle through everything. What I am going to do is also put a bit of tape on here and on the back end. I'm going to leave this tape on here for the entire rest of the project until I'm basically ready to put the pickups in, because I don't want to risk damaging it. So if I get my square, bung it on the bottom, line it up. So there's my centre. Right, so if I get this and line it up with the centre, so let's line up the centre at the front, centre at the back. I'm going to draw around it. Such a weird shape. I had this problem when I was doing the that other one, the Millennium Falcon. There's no straight lines on it anywhere. It's all curves and circles and diagonals. I think what I ought to do with this is figure out some kind of template. What I'll do, chuck a load of tape on this back edge. So now that's an exact copy of what I want my curve to be. Nicely. This headstock's ready to be sprayed now. It's been filled and primed. I've gone over it with some 400. It's been drying for a couple of days while I've been waiting for this paint to arrive. So let's give it a go. go for a second coat. I don't think it will need many. So this headstock's had quite a lot of coats of paint on it now. It's looking pretty good. It's been curing for a couple of days, so it's definitely dry enough to take all this masking off and sand the neck down, ready for finishing. So I might just go for it. Don't know if I'll need the Stanley knife. I'll go around there just in case. That's just where the nut's gonna sit. There it is against the wood, looking pretty good I think. So yeah, now just a load of sanding. I'm not going to subject you to that. But yeah, what I'm going to use for the finish is the wiping varnish, or wipe on poly, which I made in another video that I did. Click up there if you want to have a look at that. This has been sat on the shelf for a little while, so that's nice. But this has happened to it. But it's not a problem, because that's only a film, I would say about 2 mil thick. There you can see an air bubble moving around inside there. So this is fine. So I'll have to try and get that skin out there and then give it another shake, I think. So how am I going to do that? I need a long, thin, pointy thing. So I've got an offcut here from a thing. So let's try and chip off this skin. Ooh! Okay, I've pierced it quite easily. So let's just sort of scrape around. There! Don't fall in there. There we go. Okay, now I've discovered a flaw in this plan. I've got nowhere to put this. I'll just... There we go. There you go. Lovely. I suppose now I can shake it back up again. Just jump straight back into it like when it was new. I'm pretty pleased with how that previous one turned out. So I'm going to use the same technique again, which I learned from Brad Angove, which is what he's really called. Not Brad Angrove, like I said in that one. He probably gets that all the time. So, sorry about that, Brad. It's looking alright. Alright, so let's get going on this. I'm going to glove up. So I've sanded the thing up to 800. And then the first couple of coats of the finish I'm going to apply with a piece of 1500. So that will kind of continue sanding it obviously a little bit, which will get a nice smooth finish, and it will create a kind of slurry with the sawdust, which would help fill the grain a little bit. With the other neck, I did find that this was quite forgiving when it comes to the finish texture of your application. It kind of settles down as it dries, you know, like water. It spreads out and forms a smooth surface kind of on its own. Well, while I've got you, thanks for subscribing and liking and commenting and all the stuff that you do when you watch YouTube videos. Obviously this was primarily started as somewhere I can show what I've built, so that will help me sell them. And I've sold a few, so if that's to do with your input on the channel, then thanks very much. So now I'm going to move on to a rag to apply this with. I'm going to beglove myself again. He really rubbed it in, even when he was doing it with the rag. So I think the idea is you really push it into the wood, really rub it on. I think this is what I was doing wrong a minute ago. You actually massage it into the wood. You know, so it sort of absorbs in like a body lotion or something. So hopefully that's not going to trouble the headstock too much when I do that on there. So this has had a good load of coats of finish on it now and a few days to cure. So I'm going to knock down the sort of inconsistencies with some 2500 sandpaper just to kind of even it out. This isn't scuffing it up at all, but it is leveling it all out. At the moment it feels sort of like a banister. Look, that's smoothed off now. It's got a nice sort of luster to it. So I'm going to buff this out. I can get an ice cream. So I'm just going to use normal Mr. Sheen. This is okay on this kind of finish. Obviously I wouldn't use it on like an oil finish or anything like that. It feels really slick underneath the sock. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's really nice. You can see the shine on that. So yeah, that's really slick. So I think I'm going to leave this on here for now and sort the fretboard out at the end, definitely. So the next thing to do is to fit this thing onto the tin.